Dani's hands shook as she unfolded the crumpled, anonymous letter, its jagged handwriting etched with a menace that made her stomach twist. The words were a prediction, but not a hopeful one, a harbinger of death looming over her family. Every letter she read seemed to seep into her skin, igniting a fire of fear and fury that coursed through her veins. Her heart pounded like a drum of impending doom, each beat a reminder that time was slipping, that the moment to act could vanish as easily as a shadow at sunset. She felt the world narrowing, every sound muted except for the frantic rhythm of her own pulse, and the urgent whisper of questions that refused to leave her mind. Who could write this? What truth were they hiding? And most terrifying of all, could she stop it before it was too late? She bolted down the hallway toward Nicole's room, driven by an instinctive urgency she could neither deny nor control. But as the door swung open, Nicole's eyes met hers briefly, calm and composed on the surface, yet beneath them, a current of evasion and concealment surged like an undercurrent threatening to drag Dani under. In that moment, Dani realized the danger was far deeper than a simple threat. It was an intricate web of lies, betrayals, and secrets, carefully spun and waiting to ensnare her. And at the center of it, quietly enigmatic and profoundly consequential, was Peaches, whose existence seemed bound to truths Dani was only beginning to suspect. The stakes were no longer just survival, they were the unraveling of trust itself, the exposure of shadows that had lain dormant until now, and the confrontation of choices that could destroy everything she held dear. Dani's hands trembled as she clutched the anonymous letter, her pulse hammering against her temples, her vision slightly blurred by the mix of fear and rage. The words scrawled in uneven handwriting seemed to crawl across the page, each sentence a knife twisting in her chest. It predicted death within her family, an ominous prophecy that made her entire being quiver with tension. She felt a surge of disbelief and terror, followed almost immediately by a searing anger. How could someone wield such knowledge over her life and the lives of those she loved? Dani could not distinguish between the panic clawing at her insides and the rage that demanded action. The letter was not just a warning, it was a threat, a challenge, a puzzle that demanded unraveling before it was too late. Her steps were frantic as she approached Nicole's room, each stride echoing in the silent hallway like a countdown. Nicole, poised and seemingly indifferent, averted her eyes, a thin veil of composure masking something far darker. Dani's instincts screamed that the avoidance was deliberate, a calculated concealment of a secret with consequences that could shatter everything. Nicole's reluctance, the way she skirted every question and every gaze, was a provocation, an invisible hand pressing Dani against the walls of fear and suspicion. Within that calculated distance, Dani sensed a magnitude of betrayal she could scarcely articulate. Peaches, innocent and beloved, was somehow entwined in a hidden truth, and Smitty's shadow lingered over Nicole's silence like an unspoken pact. The internal conflict churned violently within Dani. Her mind raced through scenarios, each more harrowing than the last, every possibility a tangle of death, deception, and moral compromise. To confront Nicole would be to invite confrontation, perhaps irreversible, but to hesitate could render her powerless, a witness to catastrophe. Dani felt her fury sharpen into a weapon, cutting through the fog of fear, compelling her to act, yet each step forward was weighed against the potential for irreparable loss. She was trapped between instinct and reason, between action and restraint, every heartbeat a drum of impending consequence. Time itself seemed suspended, stretched thin by the tension coiling inside her. Dani imagined Peaches not as a creature of innocence, but as the fulcrum of hidden truths, a symbol of the labyrinthine schemes that had remained unseen. Each small gesture of Nicole, each measured word, was a code, a silent message she had yet to decipher. The anger surging through Dani was not merely reactive, it became a lens sharpening her perception, exposing cracks in the facade Nicole had meticulously maintained. Every delay in uncovering the truth was a gamble with fate, every breath a negotiation with dread. Dani knew that the window to prevent disaster was narrowing, that her hesitation could transform mere danger into irreversible tragedy. The sense of impending doom was suffocating, a shadow stretching long across the walls of Dani's consciousness. Her mind oscillated between panic and resolve, fear and fury intertwining in a relentless spiral. The more she observed Nicole's careful composure, the more she recognized the layers of deception embedded within the household, layers that had been constructed over years of silent machinations. Dani realized that confronting Nicole would not merely expose a secret, it would ignite the buried resentments, the ambitions, the jealousies that had lain dormant, waiting for the spark. Every relationship within the family, every bond Dani had taken for granted, could fracture under the weight of revelation. The letter in Dani's hands felt impossibly heavy, laden with the knowledge of what could come. She understood that Peach's very existence, and Nicole's concealment of the truth, were not benign, they were pivotal pieces in a scheme she could scarcely comprehend. The sense of betrayal was absolute, a betrayal not only of trust but of the unspoken moral contract that bound them as a family. Dani's anger intensified, raw and unrelenting, her thoughts racing with the necessity to expose, to confront, to act, yet every potential move was fraught with risk. The pressure was suffocating, compressing her consciousness into a singular, relentless focus: prevent the catastrophe, whatever the cost. Each step Dani took in her pursuit of the truth brought her closer to a revelation that promised devastation. She began to piece together the intricate threads linking Nicole and Smitty, the clandestine motives entwined with the obscure origin of Peaches. The more she discovered, the more the lines between ally and enemy blurred, each fact a dagger poised to cut the fragile bonds of family. Dani's mind was a battlefield, a war of reason against emotion, morality against survival, fear against the fury demanding retribution. The stakes were unthinkable, yet the imperative to act was undeniable. Nicole's avoidance became a provocation in itself, each evasive movement a challenge to Dani's resolve. The very walls of the house seemed to close in, echoing the internal confinement Dani experienced. Every shadow, every muted sound, intensified the urgency, amplifying the sense of imminent loss. Dani's rage, tempered by desperation, fueled a determination that transcended fear. She understood that inaction was complicity, that silence would render her powerless to alter the course set by unseen hands. Each moment she delayed, the threat described in the letter loomed larger, shaping her decisions, her perception, and ultimately, her identity within the escalating crisis. The house was silent now, but the silence was a suffocating weight, pressing down on Dani with the relentless gravity of inevitability. She stood in the center of the living room, the remnants of chaos scattered around her, each piece a testament to the confrontation that had consumed the past hours. Nicole's eyes, once opaque with concealment, now shimmered with the raw vulnerability of exposure, yet even that vulnerability carried the sharp edge of defiance. Dani felt the bitter clash of emotions inside her, a cocktail of anger, relief, betrayal, and sorrow. She had uncovered the truth about Peaches, a truth that twisted her understanding of family, loyalty, and trust, and yet the cost of discovery had been immense. Every choice Dani had made, every risk she had taken, now felt like a double-edged sword. In exposing Nicole's secret and unraveling Smitty's manipulations, she had faced the abyss of potential destruction and stared into it without flinching. Yet, even as relief washed over her, she understood that no revelation came without consequence. The bonds that had once felt unbreakable were strained almost to their limits, threads of connection fraying under the weight of deception and anger. She could see it in Nicole's posture, in the subtle hesitations, the flickers of guilt and defiance that danced across her face. The betrayal had been laid bare, but so too had the vulnerability of everyone involved. Dani's anger simmered, a persistent ember that refused to be extinguished, fueled by the memory of lies and the knowledge that trust was a fragile, often illusory construct. Yet there was also clarity now, a sharp illumination of what must come next. The decision she had postponed, the confrontation she had feared, had all culminated in this tense equilibrium, a precarious balance between what was lost and what could still be salvaged. She understood that the aftermath of truth was rarely neat or simple, it was messy, jagged, and unpredictable, and it demanded resilience, courage, and the willingness to accept the fallout. As Dani looked at Nicole, at Peaches now quiet and seemingly ordinary, she felt a strange mixture of triumph and mourning. The family had survived, narrowly, but the shadows of deceit would linger like ghosts in every room, every whispered conversation, every glance that once conveyed unconditional trust. Dani's mind raced with the knowledge that even with the immediate danger averted, the long-term consequences of exposure would ripple endlessly, reshaping relationships, power, and perception. The choices she had made were irreversible, the truths revealed were permanent, and the anger, the betrayal, and the moral reckoning would follow them all indefinitely. In the end, Dani understood that surviving the threat was only the beginning. Confronting the darkness within her family, navigating the fractures of trust, and facing the ghosts of deceit required an unrelenting vigilance. There would be no easy resolutions, no neat closure, only the persistent awareness that each decision carried weight, each revelation demanded reckoning, and every action was a step on the precarious edge between order and chaos. She had acted, yes, but in doing so, she had inherited the legacy of consequences, a reminder that the pursuit of truth, however necessary, was never without peril. And as the quiet of the house settled once more, Dani felt the pulse of determination harden within her, a resolve tempered by fire, sorrow, and the unyielding knowledge that the battle for clarity, justice, and survival was far from over.